Hi you guys, it's Miss Arneson, and this is a short video to recap evolution for you. We did this way back, I think in term 1, so now we're bringing it up again in term 6, and I just feel like we need a refresher. So this is an evolution recap, and this picture that I chose is bacteria to Beethoven. And a lot of times students will say something like, well, I don't believe that humans evolved from monkeys. Like humans didn't turn into monkeys. Well, scientists don't believe that either. In fact, we just accept facts, we accept evidence. And there's a lot of evidence that shows that chimpanzees and humans have the same ancestor, not that we are turning back and forth into each other. So I just wanted to get that big misconception out of the way. This picture right here is not representing science. It's really confusing that that's what's on the internet a lot about evolution, but that's not what we're talking about when we describe evolution. So, throughout all human history, people noticed that parents look like their kids and their kids kind of look different than them. So, I just picked two celebrity pictures right here that really the parents look like the kids. So, you probably don't know who Bette Midler is, but I never saw this picture till today, but her daughter looks basically identical to her. And then, of course, this is it's Ice Cube, right, Dot? Is that
Mm,
who I told you it is?
That guy?
Yeah. No, this guy.
This guy, yes.
Okay. So Ice Cube and his son, they also look a lot alike. So here they are together. But there's also differences, and that's important. People notice this. It's common sense. If you have a dog and you breed it with another dog, it's going to have some characteristics of both dogs in the offspring. So this is not debated, right? It's called descent with modification, and you should write that down. Descent with modification. When organisms are born, they look kind of like their parents and kind of not. And that's true with even bacteria. So you can't see bacteria with your naked eye, but bacteria are mostly going to look like the parent cell, and they might have a couple of mutations that make them different, and that would be a modification. So humans actually use this to our advantage. We took something like the gray wolf, which is the common ancestor of all the dogs we have today, and we bred it. We did this to corn and watermelons and every basically food that we eat, cows, potatoes. We did this to everything so that we could pick out the traits that we like. And that's what artificial selection is. It's evolution that's guided by human beings. So when people say that they don't believe in evolution, that's like saying you don't believe in corn. Okay, corn is real, and we actually have corn because our ancestors picked the best type of corn ancestors, and then they had those seeds reproduce. Same thing with the dog. We start off with the gray wolf, and then we had these different breeds of dogs bred around the world for different purposes, and now we have these modern breeds that we recognize today, and there's some intermediate ones. So there's breeds of dogs that are considered extinct. We don't have them anymore because nobody's been purposefully trying to make them have offspring. Okay, scientists knew that organisms changed over time, but Darwin figured something new out. He figured out that the thing guiding evolution, the long term descent with modification, so how species change over time, he figured out that the thing guiding that is nature. And what about nature? Well, that nature is hard to survive in. So if you're better at surviving, if you're more fit, if you have more adaptations, then you are going to pass on your traits to your offspring. And that's how we get new species, and that's how species die out as well. So, here are some ideas about how nature guides evolution. This list is not exhaustive, there's a lot more things going on, but this is a good idea for like a starting point. So, there's sexual selection. You have to find a mate. So, in the animal kingdom, the male organism is the one that tries to impress the female. So if you think of like peacocks, peacocks get these big feathers, and it actually makes it harder for them to fly with those big male feathers. The pretty peacocks are the males because they're trying to attract a mate. There's also competition for resources. This is a big one. Like if you're a plant and you live in the tropical rainforest, the resource you're competing for is often sunshine. There's enough water, but you've got to get sunshine. So competition drives evolution. If you're not good enough at competition and you don't have a space to live, you can't get enough food or sunshine, then you die out. You also have to escape predation or being eaten. So I guess plants aren't really trying to escape predation. They're not running away or whatever. They're not hiding. But sometimes they'll taste bad and they'll have spikes on them to try to keep things from eating them. Like cactus have all the spikes because that way it's harder to eat them. So there's ways to escape being eaten, and that means that you can have offspring and then those genes get passed on. There's also random evolution. So this is something I actually didn't learn out until I became a science teacher myself, but sometimes every once in a while, evolution happens by random chance. This bug that I picked, this picture, is this kind of stick bug, and the only place it lives in the whole world is this island right here. And so if this island had like a big tsunami, a natural disaster that wiped out everything on it, all the plants died because of a fire or something, then that would be random chance. It's not because the organism isn't good at survival, it's just because suddenly all of them were totally wiped out. When we discovered DNA and we got into sequencing it, we built a brand new understanding of evolution. We figured out that this is happening, these adaptations are occurring because of mutations. When the mutations, which are changes in DNA, so mutations themselves are not good, bad, or neutral. Mutations are just changes in DNA. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they do something that helps us out or helps the species out. Sometimes they're bad. Like if you have certain diseases that are a result of mutation, then you will die and not pass on your genes. And then a lot of mutations just add variety or are neutral. They don't really do anything good or bad. I really want to make sure that everybody understands the difference between adaptation and fitness. The reason is because this picture right here of this polar bear is showing you its adaptations, and that is also about its fitness. So we really need to make sure that we know the difference between these. An adaptation is a gene that causes a trait or a trait that makes an organism more fit, that makes it more likely to survive and reproduce. Fitness is an overall examination of an organism so that you know how well it survives and reproduces. So an adaptation is kind of like one thing. So basically thick white fur to help the bear blend into the snow, that's an adaptation. But the fitness is going to be all the things that the polar bear has together that make it able to survive and reproduce in the polar climate where it lives. If you put me in a polar climate and you were like, go ahead and survive, I'd totally die because I am not adapted to that. I would need to have like other humans to help me in a group. And those would be the adaptations for like people who are Inuits who live in Arctic locations. They had to basically build with their ingenuity. Their adaptations were a huge brain to figure out how to survive in places where it's super cold. But animals, they just have these things or they don't. Plants, they have them because they have a genetic mutation or a trait, or they don't. And that's the last thing I wanted to really get to you guys in your brains is that adaptations are like good accidents. Nobody intentionally does it. Before Darwin really figured out what was going on with natural selection, there was this guy named Lamarck, and he was like, "Well, you have a giraffe and it has a short neck, but it keeps stretching its neck out, and over time its neck gets longer. So then when it has a baby, its neck is longer and its neck is longer. And that's just not the way genes work. Because if I could will myself to have like more hair, like if I could just have a higher density of hair so I don't have to like tease it all the time to try to get any volume at all whatsoever, I would totally have that by now because I've been wanting that for many years. But I don't get to choose. It's just that I don't really have good hair genetics, so my hair is thin. So you don't choose your adaptations. You don't get to adapt by choice or by any effort. It's just random. And if it's good, it's a happy accident that we call an adaptation instead of a bad mutation, which could literally cause you to die. All right, guys, if you have any other questions about evolution, I love this topic, so please shoot them to me in an email or as part of this assignment, and I will be happy to explore those other topics with you.